Hello sneaker lovers, welcome back to Shoe Dog Review. Today no prizes for guessing what we're looking at. Today we've got here 4 pairs of retail 380. The Yeezy Boost 380. What was the 350 V3 during development, probably in the initial designs. 2 was slotted to be the replacement for the 350 V2. But I think at some point during the development it became clear that this had its own characteristic, needed its own name, and the 350 V2 legacy or anthology needed to be left open for new colourways and new twists on that, because this is kind of a parting of the ways, and something here is quite new. It's much cleaner. Now, as I say, I'm lucky enough to have 4 pairs here. Me and my buddies, none of us, we all lucked out. We all ended up buying from Stockx, and they very kindly have lent me theirs for a couple of days so I can do some photos and do this video so we can have a look and see just how consistent they are, because variation is something that people do talk about, and being it's the first release of this item, there's going to be a few bug fixes that will change later on, which will be showing up. So it's good to have 4 pairs next to each other and scan around and see the kind of variation you should be expecting from the pairs you get, whether you're lucky enough to get them from Yeezy Supply or from Adidas when they do the next drop, which is coming soon, I think mid-December, or whether you're buying from Stockx or other resellers. What are the variations you're going to be expecting to see? Well, we're going to see some of those today. Okay, now, before we do that, let's just talk about the design itself and just have a look at the shoe. Now, I'll take this size here, which is, okay, this is a US 8, so yeah, pretty much the standard sort of central size. US 9 probably the most central size, but we'll start with this. Now, where do we start? Look at the profile. It's a higher top line. It's still reminiscent of that sort of scoot shape that the 350 had, but now it's been engineered into the knit, so it's neatly finished all in one, which is a bit like the early Flyknits actually. They had that kind of treatment. So it's very stretchy, there's no stitching there to restrict it, so it opens up beautifully for your foot to go inside. Still got that angled sort of scoopy shape from the original 350 V1 and V2. What else is the same? Okay, well, it's got a seam down the centre of the back and the front, but now it's a closed seam, so it's turned inwards so you don't see it, and it's taped on the back to keep it nice and smooth, which we'll talk about a bit more a little bit more later. So essentially from a distance you're not supposed to notice it. It's kind of seamless even though it is there. And the knit pattern itself is much more 3D. Okay, for starters it looks like a Psychologist's ink blot pattern, but on top of that you've got different weights of thread. So you've got a very light thread in some sections. For example here, this is very thin. Then the grey is slightly thicker, slightly heavier yarn. And then the cream, even heavier still. So there's colour and 3D there. It's very textural in hand. On images, I didn't really make that out too well because, of course, you're just seeing a 2D image. It looks like it's printed or something. It's hard to make out, but in the flesh, it's a lovely effect. Especially how it goes underneath the sole here. So you can see that in behind the translucent sections. Okay. The V2 350 had a stripe, like the Beluga had that orange stripe, and then the Static had a clear stripe. Now, that clear material has been used here in this sort of splash panel on the side here. And that's on the lateral and the medial, but on the lateral, it's been closed up slightly, so it's got a different thread with it. It's in there, but it's very slightly different. I assumed when I looked at early images that the window would be on the inside as well, but it's not actually. Now I've got them in hand, I can see that's not the case. It's kind of got some of that thread in there, but it's also got the grey thread mixed in. Whereas on the outside it's translucent. It's also full of knitted in holes. These are deliberately knitted in, and so I think you can randomly lace it how you want, even though they've gone for the standard line up there. Some of the holes are blocked by the backing, and some aren't. Now the backing is a TPU, which is laminated on the back of the upper to prevent too much stretch and to reinforce it, to give it sort of structural strength. Otherwise it will all sort of pull apart in time, because if you're pulling that with your laces, you know, you're really going to put some tension on there. So that it's got some backing on there to reinforce that. And unfortunately, yes, it does block some of the holes. So you can't put the lace through all of those holes, but I'd say 60–70% of them you can. So you can really play around. You can even lace down here. So I'm sure some people will be getting different coloured laces and do some crazy shit where they'll be lacing it up differently. So that, it's inherited that a little bit, let's say, from the 350 V2 and the static, but taking it into this alien sort of pattern that we've got going on now, which is a very sort of camo, sort of high-techy alien sort of effect, and the window itself is part of that too. It's almost like this is a alien skin on your feet in some respect, which I think is quite a nice effect. Now, working around the back, that closed seam on the back that we've got on the front is also present, and we'll talk about this a bit more later. This is one of the areas where the symmetry kind of breaks down a bit. You can see that it's probably was supposed to. In some of the stock images, the back seam is perfectly symmetrical, but what we're seeing here in the flesh on shoes is actually, it's not, often not, and often it's only 1 foot. Oops. In this case, both are slightly off. Looking at this size, okay, the symmetry is quite good on that. Let's get the other foot. Yeah, so you can see that symmetry is really good on the right foot, not so good on the left foot. So that's something you should be expecting from pairs you're getting. And again, the 3.5. The same thing, lack of symmetry. See that, especially on the left foot here, right foot also, but not as much. The seam always does line up because it is dead center. It's only the cutting of the knit that actually is slightly adrift. I guess they're cutting it out on, it's pre-knit with a predefined edge here, but this part and this part will be cut. So I guess, you know, there's a couple of millimeters tolerance there in terms of drift, and that's showing up on that seam. But it always lines up nicely with the back seam here. Okay, talking about that back seam takes us into the sole. So we can come back and talk about the sole a bit more now. Okay, you've got a clear or semi-translucent side wall on the inside and the outside, and it doesn't quite meet at the toe. It's broken up by this toe piece, because let's face it, this piece here, it couldn't be all the way around one. You couldn't mold that and have that fit. It would have to be vulcanized like a Chuck Taylor to do that, and that would be a wrap, and it would be much more organic and quite messy at the back here. But this is a, you know, TPU, I think, two-piece mold that then butt seams together at the back here. It does rely on a very, very clean meat, and it is very, very clean, but I am seeing, you know, a little bit of variation from left to right. You see this one is almost invisible, so let's say that's the perfect seam. But this one is slightly raised on the one side. It's not a perfect meat, and that creates this shadow that you can see. So it's quite evident even from a distance. I mean, it's not my favourite kind of seam in terms of shoemaking, a closed seam like that, because I know how hard it is to get them right, you know, for every pair. It's a hand job, it's done by hand. People are putting those two things together, and then they're combining it to this sole, the sole bottom plate. So again, you know, there's an opportunity there for some slight human error, slight inaccuracy of you know, assembly, and it becomes visible and a little bit untidy like that. Turning to the bottom, okay, we've got a full length rubber sheet, 3D molded. The classic boost window is exposed as normal. It's got a full length boost inside that is encased in this, but this time the window is not the classic sort of triangular shape with rounded off corners. It's actually more of an integrated part of the design itself, which is kind of like some wavy sort of alien-esque, reminiscent of the upper pattern sort of texture design on the bottom, with a lot of cutouts too, so it's going to be very good for flex, and a lot of what we call herringbone traction grip. So these are really going to grip well on the ground, a much more secure, let's say, ride or walk compared to the 350 V2. Like I say, the boost is a full length piece encased in this, so it's super cushioned, super light, super bouncy. You've got a lot of energy return there, and just to help that along, you've got this angle on the back of the heel. Now I'm sure when they were first designing that, it was a cosmetic detail, just some kind of energy feature of the design, but there is a technical purpose to it, and it means when you land on the heel strike, you're not pushing the shoe up into the foot. And I do think for the 350, that was a detail actually where it did kind of push into the bottom of the heel and cause a little bit of discomfort if you're wearing them for extended periods of time. So this actually should resolve that. And there's another detail which we can't see that's going to help that too, and that's on the inside. There's a lovely 3D cushion which is quite low down. It's not wrapping around your ankle, it's wrapping around the heel. So the heel has got extra cushioning there to sort of hug the foot and give it extra comfort and cushion some of that strike when you're walking. So in terms of heel security, heel lock, fantastic. I think this is much, much better than a 350. And I do think people will notice the difference in terms of comfort and long-term wear, how that is. Now, talking about long-term wear, another detail for the 350 was the toe compression. Because it's prime knit, which is stretchy, the front was always quite tight on the foot. So people would size up half a size or a whole size, in fact. I did, I'd size up a whole size just to avoid that compression on the toe, because it was, after a while, your foot gets quite hot and quite uncomfortable. Now, the 380, this has been formed in such a way, it's got reinforcements behind it, so it doesn't compress on the toe. So the toe fit is much, much more true to size. Now, and with this item, I've gone true to size. I've not sized up. And I'm happy I did, because it fits perfectly. There's no compression on the toe. It's got enough stretch to hold my foot and make me feel secure in it. It's snug, it's not tight. And so, my recommendation is go true to size. Some people are saying size up half, and some of those people probably like that sort of loose, easy comfort fit. So it's up to you. Size up a half, but do not size up a whole one. You'll regret that, because they'll be too big and too loose. It's not the same as the 350 V2. It's a bit more like the 350 V1, because that also didn't have a lot of stretch and actually fitted more true to size compared to the 350 V2. So I think that's enough on the fit. Size up a half or go true to size should be okay. Now, something I am glad to report, being that these all four are from Stockx, and that is, I don't think any of them are fake. I think all four are legit pairs. And we'll do a second video where we'll have a look at some reps and compare them to these. But I was really pleased. And in fact, some details really do give that away, and that is just the accuracy of certain colours throughout the four, exactly the same. The sole colour I've seen on reps, it varies a lot. And the fact that these have all got identical sole colour, identical boost in terms of execution and pattern, everything about them, the colour, is all exactly the same. Just the sizing and the shape, the shape and the execution, the seam here, the seam at the back, these things are varying quite considerably, because they're the hand finished details that have that human variation within them. Talking of which, look, if you look at the front here, you can see this the seam is off centre, so it's heavier on the left than the right. And when we compare it to the other foot, you can see the same is going on that one, not to the same degree. So this one's actually slightly wider than this. So again, a little bit more variation there. Here it's slightly narrower, here it's slightly wider. So, it's just an assembly variation. Looking at this pair, okay, the symmetry is very good on this foot, as you can see, left and right, almost identical, pretty much as good as it's going to get. And then the other foot is slightly off again, it's slightly off centre. And as we look at the back, yes, the back too. We looked at that already, but it's good to revisit that. So you can see the symmetry is off here, the symmetry is off here, and that is actually to be expected with retails. Heel seam, about the same level of visibility, I think, left and right. This one is actually not quite as clean. I can feel a step there, I can feel a slight ridge there, so it's not flush. This one it feels a lot better. But you know, you're always going to see that seam a little bit. There's nothing you can do about that. That is just, you know, a signature detail of the shoe. And looking at this pair, again, fatter, skinnier. Symmetry's there, Symmetry's not there. Well, the Symmetry is there, but it's slightly wider, although that one is a little bit lower. So you can see this little blob here. That one's about 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters lower. So again, a shift on Symmetry. However, up here, the positioning is perfect. It's slightly off that way, but in terms of height, location, pretty much on line. So it's drifted back. Maybe they start stitching here and finish stitching on the toe. Hard to say. Back, Symmetry is better on this one, not as good on that one. Seam, here was the sole seam. Well, I'm not sure on camera, but to me this one looks a little bit more messy and a little bit more inconsistent. It's kind of heavier in the middle and then lighter at the side. This one is at least it's all more consistent. But again, left and right, slightly different. Okay, now I'm going to switch to UV because I want us to have a look and see, you know, what lights up with the UV, because you know, later on if you're checking reps and stuff like that, you want to know, you know, what the retail should look like. And we'll have it hoping it's going to stay in focus, and I'll have to hold that with one hand and lift up the shoe. But actually what you can see is only the side of the sole gets picked up with the UV. Oh, we can see the new Stockx tag there as well. Can you see that? Okay, so the new Stockx tag has got that UV pickup. Nothing on the other side though, interestingly. I would have done that too, made the white sort of pop out. But anyways, there it is. Okay, so on the shoe upper, nothing. Just a little bit around the edge of the glue. If you can see that on the top seam there of the heel, just a tiny little bit of the glue is visible. But the upper knit itself, no. Okay, and the side wall of the sole, yes. All the way around. And the glue behind it. So if you look at that, you can see it's actually quite messy at the top line there, that sort of bumpiness. That's because the glue is also UV sensitive. Being that it's behind the sole there, it needs to all unify. And yeah, so that's reflecting the UV too. It's a little bit messy in places, especially around the toe there, you can see that. So that's pretty standard. So you should expect that on retails. So that's what this has got. Let's have a look at another one, compare it. Again, kind of messy around the toe there, you can see it picks up the glue, but just the side wall of the sole is highlighted. You get a bit of glow on the bottom, and the boosters turn purple. That sort of dark blacky purple sort of effect that the boost does, which is to be expected, and just the side wall, and yeah, definitely the glue there is really showing up. Now, I said I'd mess around a little bit. Something I want to show you that I've seen pictures of, but I never bothered to try myself, but I did it and I actually really like it, and that is, when you put the light behind the boost, you can see, okay, that they are actually beads forming, because around the sides it's lighter. So if you imagine like a whole load of beads all together, the light is going to pass around the sides more than it will through each bead. And this really does show that they are all beads, heated and combined together. So they are, independent beads of this compound with their bouncy, springy effect, all cooked together into one midsole. And that's all the way through. I can't really get down the front end, but you can see that there's no seam there, it's all the way. Very interesting effect, that. And I think that's one of the legit check methods too. To check it's not just a moulded cake of EVA that looks like boost from the outside, which some of the really bad reps do have, it's true. Okay, with early releases, of course, like I say, you're always going to have some bug fixes in terms of the first run they experienced some teething problems. If you remember with the Balenciaga Track version 1, the front cage, how the first release pairs were quite messy, and it took them a couple of runs to really perfect that. And you know, I'm kind of seeing some of that with the 380. I mean, this kind of thing here, this is just random. That's just one pair, didn't get formed very well there, and they let that come through. So I guess QC was being a little bit tolerant. But this off-center seam thing, you know, it's very consistent through all of them, you know, especially on the back. But, you know, it's more the left to right symmetry of the shoes that I think matters more than variation itself. I mean, it's okay that it's like that, but you do want the left and right to pair up. Now, this one isn't too bad. But when you look at this pair, you can see it's a lot skinnier on that foot compared to that. And so for those people out there with OCD who really want things to be neat, you know, they fork out resale prices and this drops in. I wonder how they feel. I don't know, but I would be a little bit disappointed. I would try not to look down at my toes, I think. That's if I wear them at all and I don't just collect them and leave them in a box. But yeah, it's a true fact. There it is, lack of symmetry, left to right, and left to right of the upper two, back and front. So that is not a call-out detail. That is a fact, in fact, a detail of retails. And look at here, you've got these two eyes there, two little dots. Here, it's not visible, you can't see it, it's gone. And actually that's drifting up a little bit too. It's higher on this side than that side. So, you know, that kind of stuff is to be expected. Okay, one of the details of the Yeezy 350 V1 and V2, especially the V2, was the heel shape. And that kind of had a sweeping curve. And something I've gravitated to on these is actually noticing how much this back varies from one pair to another. I think if I take this one here, I think this is kind of like, I think this is, for me, the classic. Even though that Stockx tag's too tight, it's squashing the collar there. Nicely added on there. Why is that so short? Whereas it's bigger on the other one. Anyway, try not to look at that. Okay, so the top line here, the instep point, not the tongue. It's not a tongue because it's not separate. Okay, so we call that the instep. The top of the instep here is significantly lower than the back. And even when you squeeze that out by hand to sort of try and line it up, you can see it's still sitting lower than that. Okay, and this has got a slight curve in, bulking out because of that foam inside the heel a little bit, but curving out and then curving over, sorry, and in, and then curving back out, and then this sort of flaring slightly out. But you can see from the other foot, that one's a bit straighter. And if we look at another pair, okay, you can see again it's straighter on one than the other. I mean, this one's very straight, and the height here is almost level. So you're seeing quite a bit of variation. You know, already there's people saying the 380, it must be so many millimeters higher here than here. But clearly, if retail's varying that much, then that debunks that. There is some variation there. And, you know, let's have a look at another pair. Hang on. Yeah, okay, so height symmetry is pretty good. Both quite straight though. But in this case, these are almost the same height again. So this isn't sort of significantly higher than this. It's almost sitting at the same height. And on the other foot, it actually is lower. Very slightly, yeah, it is lower. So, you know, even left to right feet, there's some variation there. But don't get stuck on that. It has to be, you know, 10 millimeters higher for the back tab compared to the front. You know, it doesn't actually sit that high for some pairs. There is variation. I mean, don't forget, it's a knitted textile. It is a defined knit, so the pattern itself is a computer program, so it should be pretty much exact, but obviously, you know, when it's actually put together, hand assembled, some of that's going to pull it in different directions, so you will get some variation. This one's got that nice kick on the back there again. Yeah, most of them are very, very straight on the back, but this one's got that nice kick. And you do get a slight bulging here because of that heel cushioning inside. So you get that sort of swoosh, but it's nothing like the 350 V2, which I love, that swoop. But in a way, this is part of the swoop now, isn't it? It's part of the sole, so that's taking that job away. And then you're getting a little bit of a kickback here, but on some pairs, not enough. Like here, it's just straight, very straight. Anyway, that's a detail worth paying attention to, but not worrying about so much. You know, people say, oh, you know, the way to legit check. I mean, this is a good example. I'd hold that, right? They're the same height. If I could even argue this is a little bit higher. Very, very slight, no, it's about the same. It's the same. So, you know, when it's relaxed, it sits lower, but when you actually measure it, and probably when it's on a foot too, it's going to sit at the same height. Now, all of these got the single tag with the RFID, and I should do a light check, but it is in there, I can see it. Sandwiched between two layers. Interestingly enough, people talk about the RFID like it's something for the consumer, but as far as I know, RFID is actually a stock management thing, so they know where all the pairs are. So, hey, they're watching you. Wherever you are, if you've got the label on, that is, or wherever the box of your shoes with the label. I wonder what that does for replicas. Do they also have a signal? Can Adidas locate those too? Or is that a good way to legit check, actually? If you had the access to the system for their stock management, you scan that, and if it doesn't show up, then you know it's not a retail pair. Could be. And also, subject of labelling has come up quite a bit, so let's have a look and see what these labels actually say. All right, okay, so even it's a 4, it's small, they're all marked with men's sizes. It's the US sizing, it says male, male, made in China. You've got the PO number there, 124166988. Date of manufacture, 10/19, so October. And let's have a look at this one. Again, male, male, made in China, US labelling, 8.5. APE, that's Apache, by the way. Style number 779001. Again, October 19. Different PO purchase order code. It's 124167011. And then this one, again US sizing, US labelling, different PO number again, same style number, APE Apache 779001, again October 19. 10/19 again, made in China, US sizing, male, male. 779001. Purchase order code 124166988. Okay, so none of them saying sample inside. I know there was some talk on Instagram, a few people saying that some of them would come with the sample label. Perhaps a few friends and family pairs did, but certainly the stuff that's come through here doesn't. And when we look at reps, we'll look at the labels on those too, so make a comparison, see if those are any different. Or wager they probably are, actually. Now, we talked about construction earlier, and I think I drifted off and talked about something completely different, which is so my style. Sorry about that. But, okay, we were talking about this seam being closed now, not exposed with the whip stitch on the outside like the 351 and 350 B1 and 2. Okay, but so it's a closed seam. And because it's a closed seam, the edges of that on the inside would push against the foot. So to tidy that up, they seam seal it. Okay, so you can they heat bond this tape on top to flatten that seam down and hold it, stop it coming apart, keep it nice and smooth against the foot. So internal comfort is very, very good in these shoes. It's hard for us to look inside the shoe, to be honest, from a camera angle. I don't know if you can see that. No, you can't, the lighting's not supporting it, but the seam runs all the way down. It's incredibly clean in there, nice and smooth. There are reinforcements behind the toe to hold that shape, like I say, it's not compressing over the toe, so the 4 foot fit is true to size. It's not tight. And behind the eyelet area, also some reinforcement with this lamination there, so that this doesn't pull apart when you're lacing the shoe up. The windows on the outside, not on the inside. That pattern has been knitted with that semi-translucent, but combined with the grey thread together. So it's opaque there, it's not see-through, not the same as the outside. I don't know why, but it took me a while to notice that. I think I assumed that there would be symmetry, so I didn't look that hard, but there it is. And yeah, this lovely 3D texture, which I have talked about, but I keep going back to because I think it's one of the key features of this shoe versus the other Yeezys, you know, this 3D texture. And I think we're going to see more of this because, you know, it's what we're seeing more of is design within the shape. So the actual silhouette is very simple, very clean, but then a lot of detail worked into the pattern or the print or the decoration. So, you know, it's a single piece or just a, you know, simple cut upper, but with a lot of complexity built in. And in fact, that continues on the sole. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but as you look at the sole, you can see this print pattern, this sort of ink blot camo sort of texture you've got on the upper continues onto the sole. I mean, it is slightly a green colour, which I wonder why that isn't grey to match the upper. It might have looked a bit nicer if they used that light grey there, that dark grey there. However, it is what it is, and it's reminiscent of the upper. I did hear a rumour that the next drop for these, they're going to cancel that because they've had a few problems in production, but that could be just one of those rumours that comes out. We'll see. On the medial side, that translucent allows for us to see the upper, so from a distance, the sole doesn't look like it's including that top section. You know, it doesn't interfere with the colour, and if that's black, you know, to some of the later colourways coming, that's going to separate the shoe so the sole looks thinner than it really is. It's actually wrapping up here to secure the foot quite significantly and up there into the arch, offering some support. So it runs all the way around like that. Now, I'm wondering what else I need to talk about with these shoes. Just the quick details. Okay, sock liner is a standard Yeezy and Adidas logo sock liner. In fact, it's the same one, I think, as the 350 V3. V2. It's got me doing it now. Okay, so this, yeah, I think it's the same sock liner. Same fabric actually as well. And inside, that signature detail of those cutout holes. Can you see those? That runs all the way through that strobel board. And again, it's strobel seam, so that's that stitching on the side there. It runs all the way around. So the sock is formed with a bottom and then pulled onto the last like a sock. So it's not lasted round and glued on the bottom. It's stitched together first into a sock booty shape, and then the last formed, pushed inside and exposed to heat to form the toe shape and the heel. Let's get that back in. Okay, so that is the Adidas Yeezy Boost 380 2019 as released mid-November. I'm sure I've missed something. I'm sure I've taught you something. I hope you've enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll probably drop in something that I've missed out. And yeah, leave some comments below. I do appreciate your comments, even the amusing ones. And yeah, subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next time when we'll be looking at some reps and comparing them to these retails. Thanks guys.